Okay, so the first virtual machine that we're going to fire up in Hyper-V is going to be our Server 2012 R2 box. Now, if you just got done watching the host setup, it's going to be very similar as far as installation is concerned. In fact, it's going to be identical. So let's get going here. Okay, so I'm on my Hyper-V box here. This is actually my Hyper-V server that I have here. It's got a bazillion gigs of RAM and it's got a ton of hard drive space in it. Just ignore these virtual machines. These are not the virtual machines you are looking for. These are ones that I use in my own production environment here at the Justice League. Yeah, I know, see, Batman reference, huh? So I'm going to go and create a new virtual machine on my Batcave. So I'm going to select New, Virtual Machine. It's going to walk me through my 4-hour wizard. 4-hour wizard, not really. I just like making people think I work a long time. I'm going to hit Next. Asks, what's the name of the machine that you'd like to create? Well, I'm going to call this one Ethical Hacking, or EH, Server 2012. Maybe I should do R2 just in case I have another box on there called 2012. Now it's asking me also where do I want to store the virtual machines. You can store them in the default location or you can specify somewhere else. I'm going to just put them here. Actually, let's put them in a different location. I want to put them on my D drive under CEH project. I'm just going to, again, I'm a stickler for organization. So I'm going to create a folder here. I'm going to call it VMs. And this is where I'm going to put all my VMs. And it'll create a subdirectory for me named after the machine. And what this is asking for is not actually where do you want to install, but where do you want to put the configuration files that make up the virtual machine. I'm going to hit Next. It then asks what generation of Hyper-V do you want to create. Trust me on this one. Again, this is not a Hyper-V class. We're just going to take Gen 1. And it says how much memory do you want to utilize? Well, you need at least on this box here, you probably want to have like 4 gig. On this box, let's go ahead and just give it 248 megabit, which is 2 gigs of hard drive space or of memory. Now I know this isn't a ton of memory associated to the machine, but again, this machine is going to have, actually I take that back. Let's do 4 gig because we're going to install SQL on this box. We're going to really kind of put it to its limit here. We'll also be installing the web services on this box as well. Don't worry about the dynamic memory. We're just going to hit Next. And it says, okay, what network do you want to hook it up to? Well, you can see I've got a couple of networks here. I don't want to necessarily put it on my production environment or on my DAG network, so I'm going to put it on my hacking network because that's why I created it, so it's completely separate. I'm going to hit Next. Here's where it's saying, where do you want to put the virtual machine? The file that represents the virtual machine. You'll notice it picked up the name. The new extension now for Hyper-V is VHDX, and you'll see here that the directory it's going to create, or it's going to place it inside of CEH project, VMs, and see, I told you, it created a directory there, and it created another subdirectory, or it will create a new subdirectory called virtual hard disks, and that's good. I'm going to leave it right there. It also says, how big do you want this hard drive to be? Now, the default for this is to be a dynamically expanding hard drive, meaning that even though I specify 127 gigs, it's not going to take up 127 gigs on my physical drive. The host OS will only use as much space as the file takes up. But to the virtual machine, it thinks it has 127 gig. So you can actually over allocate. And 127 is the defaults. That's fine for me. I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. It then says, okay, we need to install an operating system because obviously this is a new machine. Do you want to install an OS later? Nope. I want to actually do this based off of an ISO. And hey, here we go with those ISOs. Remember we downloaded them? We put them here inside of our ISO directory. And there's my 2012 trial. I'm going to select Open. Hit Next. I get a summary screen. I'm going to go ahead and select Finish. It creates that virtual machine for me, and it's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my server, select to connect. It shows me, obviously, since the machine's off, if it was a physical box, I'd be staring at a black screen because it's not turned on. They're at least nice enough to tell me that, hey, it's currently turned off. Wish our physical boxes would show us that, right? I'm going to go ahead and select the Start button to start it up. I can also come up here and select Actions and then select Start. I could also just use the shortcut key, which is Control S. So I'm going to hit a Control S. The virtual machine should fire up, should pick up my CD or my DVD drive. Move this over so we can see this. Actually, we'll go full screen. Check this out. Shabam! Uh-oh, I'm a little off my resolution. It should fix itself, though, here. Very similar. Actually, it's not similar. It's exactly what we saw in the previous installation on the host machine. We're just going to go through the same steps. Select Next. Again, it's going to come up and say, which operating system would you like to install? Again, I'm going to just do a Server 2012 R2 Standard Evaluation Edition, but make sure you're not using Core. We're going to use the GUI. I'm going to hit Next. Accept the EULA. Again, remember, there's nothing to upgrade because it's a fresh install, so we're going to do a custom. I'm going to take the whole partition, and it's another waiting game. We'll pause the video and come back when it's finished up. Okay, so it's finished installing all of our features or updates. Again, we don't need to wait for it to reboot. Nothing magical about the green line. We'll just go ahead and reboot. Make sure you don't press the key. Oh, there we go. So again, we're going to be asking us for a password. We're going to use our top secret password. Again, if you didn't see the host setup, there it is right there. We're going to use $$$W0RD. I'm going to come down here and type that in as again. Hit finished. Okay, we're going to log in here. To log in, if you don't know the shortcut for it, you're going to have to come back to a windowed environment so that you can get to the actions. So in order to throw a Control-Delete, if you throw an actual Control-Delete, it'll throw it at the host machine, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to come back and window this out a bit here so that I can get to my action, and I'm going to throw a Control-Delete, and there's the password. To log in. Again, we'll go back to full screen again. So I'm going to adjust the resolution down to the 1280 by 720.